Well, good morning, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant morning, and I find it so interesting, the irony of the universe, and this little article came across my desk, why it popped up, I don't know, it's from the Ottawa Citizen in 2017, but it's basically confirmation that our Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Christia Freeland, her grandfather was basically a Nazi collaborator, and they've come up with proof positive, and I kind of find that's interesting in the light of what has just happened up in Ottawa, that there should be that sudden connection being made, because I don't know if you quite realise this yet, but the government had an incredible coup take place in the way of information. This protest, this convoy, enabled the government to invoke the Emergency Measures Act, and as I mentioned in a previous video, the Act is in force from the moment it is invoked, even though it still has to go through that whole process, 7 days to go through that process of the House of Commons and the Senate. But whilst it's in force, and I forget who it was, whether it was Christia Freeland or Justin Trudeau, but I was watching them, listening to them making an announcement, and it may have been in the repealing of the Emergency Measures Act, but they say that it was in force for 10 days. And during that 10 days, I don't know if you remember, but Christia Freeland said that she wanted every bank and financial institution and platform to review their relationships with their customers in light of the Emergency Measures Act, and to hand over all information to CSIS, okay, or to the RCMP. So they have got a treasure trove now of information that was hacked out of Give, Send, Go, and who knows what that is going to lead to in the future. And there were 200 accounts frozen, including Druthers. I listened to an interview with the sub-editor, or the assistant editor, sorry, of Druthers, and yes, so there were accounts that were frozen and are still frozen, although they did announce that they would be unfrozen once you contacted the bank, and the Governor General had signed the repeal of the Emergency Measures Act. But, like I say, should anything like this happen again, that government has a lot of information leverage that they can use against anybody that might want to speak up. And this is the general silencing of the voice of the population. And again, I know we're talking about Christia Freeland's grandfather. However, I just wanted to say that when Justin Trudeau and Christia Freeland also echoed this, that everyone has a voice and in a democracy you are free to speak. What has happened over the last 20 or 30 years or so is that the senior civil servants have closed every avenue that the public has for meaningful complaint. Okay, so there's a lot of pent-up frustration out there with the government, people who have been hurt by the government, and they can't say anything, or when they do say anything, it's just, okay, filed, thanks a lot, have a nice day, see you later. And nothing gets done, nothing changes, and the same pattern keeps getting repeated over and over again. And so when you have that kind of situation and there is no way to vent what is now patently and demonstrably obvious, you're going to get explosions here and there. You're going to get people who are just they've had enough. Look at the Arab Spring. Look at all over the world. There is a pattern to this. And we see this, throughout history, that groups are often pushed into this position. I don't think the truckers wanted to go to Ottawa at all. And I think that had some sensible decisions been made about the way we dealt with this outbreak, this would not have happened. Had there been a complaints mechanism that worked, where the government could see and respond to the number of people, not just polling, because polling can be rigged, okay? Actual people. When CBC turns off its comments on its YouTube channel, it's telling you right to its face it's not interested in your opinion, because there is a lot of good opinion to be found in the comments of these videos. I scroll down and read, I don't always respond to the comments on my videos, but some of the comments are unbelievable. I do take a little bit of time to read other comments on other videos, and you can really learn a lot about the general mood of the public just by reading those comments. So, when Justin Trudeau smugly says, "Oh, you can argue with me. Please, anytime you like, argue with me." Well, no, you can't, because when news reporters go up to him and ask the hard question, he doesn't answer, he turns away, or security rebuffs people. And as I said, all of the normal channels within government have now been sealed off. There is no adequate way or effective way for the public to complain to the government and for the government to respond to that. So we have been disenfranchised, and that's why these things happen. But this is how Nazi Germany worked. Okay, that's what the SS was all about, was winkling out individuals one by one who had gone against the state or had a different opinion to the state. This is very pernicious. Anyway, let's just read this article and I'll come back and do a very quick wrap up. Okie dokie, here we go. So here we go, Ottawa Citizen. Christia Freeland's granddad was indeed a Nazi collaborator. So much for Russian disinformation. And you'll see this is March 8th, 2017. It's kind of interesting that it's resurfaced at this moment in time. And here she is, the wonderful Christia Freeland. Don't you just love that sweet little face? Wouldn't hurt a fly, would you, honey? The news conference on Monday by Foreign Affairs Minister Christia Freeland was interesting, not for the announcement that Canada was extending its training mission to Ukraine, but for the questions and answers about the minister's grandfather. There have been a number of articles circulating about Freeland's Ukrainian grandfather, Michael Chomyak, and his ties to the Nazis. Some of those articles have appeared on pro-Russian websites. Freeland, who strongly supports Ukraine and is a major critic of Russia's seizure of the Crimea, suggested to journalists that the articles about her grandfather were part of a Russian disinformation campaign. The Russian government sees Freeland as virulently anti-Russian and has placed her on their travel ban. American officials have publicly said, and even Angela Merkel has publicly said, that there were efforts on the Russian side to destabilize Western democracies, and I think it shouldn't come as a surprise if these same efforts were used against Canada, Freeland told reporters after they raised questions about the articles about her grandfather. The Globe and Mail also reported that an official in Freeland's office denied the minister's grandfather was a Nazi collaborator. In addition, the claims were dismissed outright by those in the Canadian-Ukrainian community. It is the continued Russian modus operandi that they have, Paul Grod, president of the Canadian-Ukrainian Congress, told the Globe and Mail. Fake news, disinformation, and targeting different individuals. It's just so outlandish when you hear some of these allegations, whether they are directed at Minister Freeland or others. Well, it actually isn't so outlandish. Michael Chomyak was a Nazi collaborator. What are the sources for the information that Freeland's grandfather worked for the Nazis? For starters, the Ukraine archival records held by the province of Alberta. It has a whole file on Chomyak, including his own details about his days editing the newspaper Krakowicki Wieści. Chomyak noted he edited the paper first in Krakow, Poland, and then in Vienna. The reason he edited the paper in Vienna was because he had to flee with his Nazi colleagues as the Russians advanced into Poland. The Russians tended to execute collaborators as well as SS members. See the archive story below. And here we are, Chomyak Michael Fons. Date range 1919 to 1983. Scope and content. This Fons contains personal papers of Michael Chomyak, 1905 to 1984, a prominent figure in the Ukrainian-Canadian community in Alberta. He grew up in western Ukraine, annexed by interwar Poland. Michael Chomyak graduated from Lviv University with a master's degree in law and political science. In 1928, as a journalist, he started work in the Ukrainian daily Dilo, and from 1934 to 1939, he served on the editorial staff. During the Nazi occupation, he was the editor of Krakowicki Wieści, published first in Krakow, then in Vienna. Chomiak's family immigrated to Canada in 1948 after a brief period of manual labour. Michael Chomyak found employment in Sherritt Gordon Mines Limited in Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta, remaining with the company until retirement. So what was the Krakowicki Wieści? It, like a number of publications, had been seized by the Nazis from their Jewish owners and then operated as propaganda outlets. Here is what the Los Angeles Holocaust Museum has to say about Krakowicki Wieści and a similar newspaper, Lewinsky Wieści, both publications associated with the Nazi regime. The editorial boards carried out a policy of soliciting Ukrainian support for the German cause, the Holocaust Museum noted. It was typical within these publications not to give any accounts of the German genocidal policy, and largely the editions resorted to silencing the mass killings of Jews in Galicia. Ukrainian newspapers presented the Jewish question in light of the official Nazi propaganda corollary to the Jewish world conspiracy. In 1943 and 1944, both Levitsky-Vesti and Krakowski-Vesti hailed the German-approved formulation of the 14th Waffen-SS Division, Halychina, composed of Ukrainian volunteers, the museum pointed out. So much for Russian disinformation. On Wednesday, the Globe and Mail reported that Foreign Affairs Minister Christia Freeland knew for more than 2 decades that her maternal Ukrainian grandfather was the chief editor of a Nazi newspaper. The photo below shows Chomyak at a party. He is to the right of the man smoking. On the far right-hand lower corner of the photo, in uniform, is Emil Gastner, the Nazi administrator in charge for the press of the region, including Krakow. And there you go. All jolly good company. So there you go, and all I can say is that the apple does not fall far from the tree. And I've always wondered, just as a tiny little bit of this as a sidebar, I've always wondered what the penchant is with Christia Freeland wearing black and pearls. Every time you see either black or red, one of those two colours, and well, look at just type in the search for German symbols. Okay, from the Second World War, and you're going to see lots of black, silver, and red. Okay, so anyways, that's just a bit of sidebar. It means absolutely nothing, but this article does, because there is a definite contact, and as I say, the apple does not fall far from the tree. And this was during her formative years, remember. This is when she was sitting on her granddaddy's knee listening to "What did you do during the war, Daddy?" stories. So there you go. Those are very impressionable years, and I think that it is not uncoincidental that it has crossed my desk in the last few days. Okie dokie, well, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. Please share far and wide. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant morning, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. See ya. Bye.